Hello there, IELTS podcast listeners. In this episode, we're going to talk to Gabriella. Gabriella has taken the test a couple of times, and now she's studying with me. She's taken the sentence guide course at sentenceguide.com, the course I made, and yeah, she's part of a Facebook group, like a closed group we made for the students of the sentence guide who want to pass IELTS. And the other day I posted, if anybody wants to meet online for an interview, they can ask some questions and stuff like that. Instead of the normal success stories, this is a bit in reverse. And Gabriella's going to take the exam in the near future, I think June maybe. But anyway, welcome to the podcast, Gabriella.
Thank you. Thank you, Ben.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Thanks a lot for agreeing to do this. Now, Gabriella, could you just give us an overview of where you're from and why you're taking the IELTS exam?
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I'm from Venezuela. Right now I'm living in Australia. I came here 8 months ago. I came here to improve my English because I felt that in Venezuela it was really hard for me because I wasn't immersed in the language. So I'm trying to improve here, but I'm like a little stuck.
Okay, and can I ask you why are you stuck?
That's the problem. I don't know why. I feel that I've already improved so much. Actually, when I came here, I didn't have any idea of how to write an essay. And I didn't know that until I started writing essays here. It was weird because in Venezuela I already got 6.5 with writing, and it's the same score I'm getting here. So I can understand why I was writing bad essays there, and I got 6.5, and I come here, I study so hard, and I continue getting the same score. So the bad part is that I don't know what's my problem.
Right, okay, so this is incredibly frustrating, I imagine.
Yeah, and it's also the same with the speaking test.
Right, well, that's a surprise, actually. I thought you would get more with the speaking test, judging by the quality that I can hear now. But can I just ask, how many times have you taken the IELTS exam?
I've taken the test 5 times.
Right.
And my scores at the beginning, my weakest points were listening, writing, and speaking. Now I'm only struggling with writing and speaking.
Right. Okay, that's interesting. So it's the writing and speaking. What did you get in your latest exam?
Okay, in the last one I got 7.5 for listening, 6.5 for reading and speaking, and also the same score for reading, but this was a really bad day for me with reading because I've gotten 8. It was my previous exam, I mean the third one, and 7.5 reading has been the easiest one for me, but this test was really hard.
Right.
About
okay, that's interesting. Okay, then. So, just to summarize, it's reading is usually your strongest point.
Yeah. 8.
8. Yeah, between 8, 7.5 normally.
Yeah.
Right. And listening is also strong. You can definitely pass over 7. So, and it's the productive skills. It's the speaking and the writing that we need to smash.
Because I haven't told you that I need 7 in each one.
Right. Okay. Yeah. I guess. And is this for immigration?
Yes. Exactly. Yes. To apply to the PR here in Australia.
Right then. Okay then. So let's have a look, because I asked you before to send me the questions. I've got them in front of me. So do you want to ask me your first question? And first we're going to talk about the speaking, and then we'll talk about the writing. Okay? We'll follow basically your questions, the way you've structured this podcast. So let's
Great.
let's get started, Gabriela. If you could ask me your first question, please.
Okay, as I told you at the beginning, I've taken the test 5 times, and I'm getting 6.5 in the last 4 tests for writing and speaking. However, my writing has been going up and down, getting 6.0, 6.5 in different occasions. Every time I try a different strategy, but I don't improve enough. I don't know what my weak points are, so that's a problem. Mm-hmm. Some teachers have recommended me to use high-level vocabulary for the speaking test, but when I do that, I usually lose my fluency because I can't find the right word. I try to remember words like outstanding or bombarding, but I forget them, so I get a mess. Other teachers had recommended me to speak like I usually speak with my friends, but maybe it's making it very simple. Others say that I should improve my pronunciation, but to say the truth, I find it really hard because it's not easy to improve your whole vocabulary. You can learn how to pronounce just few words, but it'll take me years to improve my whole vocabulary. So I just want to ask you, what can I do?
Right. Okay then. Well, I'm surprised you're at 6.5. May I ask, when you go into the exam, how do you feel? Are you full of nerves, or are you bouncing into the exam with a big smile and saying, "Hello, my name's Gabriela. How are you?" How do you go into the exam? How do you feel?
Yes, I feel really comfortable. The last 2 times I felt, yes, I nailed it. I got my 7 or more, and I'm very confident. However, on my shoulders, I have a lot of pressure because I know so many things depend on this. So maybe I'm doing something that I don't realize. I don't know.
Okay, but when you start the speaking exam, when you start it, how do you feel? Are you feeling super confident or nervous?
Yes. The evaluators are very nice, and I start speaking when they ask me something, but something that I realized that I do, but I noticed that until at the end of the test, when I already got out from the room, I realized that I usually speak very, very fast when I go to the test.
Right.
Maybe it's because I'm nervous. I don't know.
Okay then. Well, Gabriela, just from 2 questions, I've kind of identified 2 small things that I don't think that you were completely aware of. The first question, I asked you, how do you feel before you go into the exam? Do you bounce in with confidence and smiling, or are you a little bit nervous? And you answered me, but you talked about how you felt when you left the exam, and you said, "I'm walking out and I'm feeling really good, and I'm sure I've passed it." Okay, and then I asked the same question again, slightly differently. I said, "How do you feel before you go in there? Do you feel nervous or confident? Confident?" This is basically what I asked the second time, and you said yes. And you said yes, but could you see? I was asking, do you feel nervous or confident? And you say yes. Can you see that little problem there? And both times you didn't answer exactly what I wanted to hear. Okay? I would have much preferred it if you'd have said something like, "Well, to be honest, before I go into the exam, I feel extremely confident, blah, blah, blah." Or I feel really nervous or whatever. Okay, but I would have preferred it if you'd have sort of like identified the exact question and then gave me an exact answer. You see what I mean?
Yes.
And I think this possibly could be one of the problems, okay? Because you do speak very well. There's the odd grammatical mistake, but I've spoken with other students who have got a 7 or a 7.5, and they didn't speak as well as you do. So this is why I'm a little bit confused. And I think perhaps this just identifying the question and paying a little bit more attention will help you. Okay, so this would be one tip. So let's just practice it now. Let's just practice it while we're talking about IELTS. Okay, so then let's see. How do you prepare for the exam, Gabriela? What do you do in your spare time to prepare for the exam?
Well, I do several things. Firstly, I've practiced with my English teacher, like doing normal tests. She asked me and I answer. After that, she usually gives me some feedback. And the second thing I usually do is recording myself. I think I should do it more frequently, but I don't do it all the time. And I also go to speak with some friends. I go to language exchange. Yes, just to be immersed in this language.
I see. Excellent. Okay. That answer was much better. Much better. Okay. Because the most important thing is that you identified the question and you answered it, but also you identified it with the correct tense. Yeah? I said, what do you do normally to prepare, or what do you usually do? And you said, well, I normally do 3 things, and then you listed it. And that was fantastic. Perhaps if you wanted to improve it a little bit more, we could inject a little bit of sort of just a feeling in there and just say, well, I practice with my teacher, blah, blah, blah. I record myself. Perhaps I should do it a little bit more often. That was fantastic. And I also go to language exchange. Personally, I love the language exchanges because once I met a person who was a fisherman of sharks or blah, blah, blah. Yeah, and you just tell like a little story, but you inject a little bit of emotion in there, a little story or a tiny example, and it just gives you the opportunity to use more vocabulary. You see?
Okay, yeah.
So you could just, in this case, when you're talking about language exchange, you could say, for example, just last week I really love the language exchanges because I get to meet lots of new fantastic people, interesting people. I mean, just last week, for example, I met a guy who lives on a boat and has been traveling for the last 900 years or whatever. Okay. But you're going to make it realistic, of course, not some crazy story like mine, but you'll just make it realistic and gives you the opportunity to introduce more vocabulary. Okay. Now, the other option I was going to give you, or the other suggestion, I can totally understand that recording yourself is a little bit of a task and it can be a little bit boring. And if I was learning a new language, I know that I probably wouldn't do it. As much as I say to some students, you should do it, I know that it's a lot easier said than done. So I would recommend one thing is if you've got an interest maybe in travel or in information technology or in biology or whatever, is find some podcasts about that topic that you enjoy and just try and copy how they speak, and just try and copy it and just listen to 10 seconds and then repeat it and then listen again to another 10 seconds and then repeat it. And if you're really keen, you could record yourself, but I think the biggest value from this would just be copying it, and you'll improve your vocabulary, and you'll improve your pronunciation as well. Okay? But definitely really pay attention to the questions, because I think this is one thing that's going to help you a lot. Okay?
Of course. Yeah.
All right. So now, what was your second question?
Okay. Yeah, it was about the speed, because when I go to the test, it's a little different than my real speaking with friends. With them, I usually speak in a normal way, but I don't know if it's because when I speak in Spanish, I tend to speak very fast, and I like imitate this when I speak in English during the test. So it's the worst way of doing that. And when I start speaking very fast, I can coordinate when I'm thinking and what I'm saying. And my vocabulary tends to go down. I don't have idea of how to use important or significant, not important, but like words that would enhance my vocabulary.
I understand, like fancy vocabulary. That's
exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Well, in this case, so just to summarize, you said that during the test, you feel like you speak a lot quicker than normal, and you don't speak as you do when you're speaking with your friends. So I guess this sounds like it's a bit of a problem with the nerves, and I think, to be honest, have you spoken about this to your tutor, to your English tutor in Australia?
Yes. Actually, I already finished that course, but when I was going to classes, she told me the same, that during the class I spoke normal, but when I went to the simulation of the test, I started speaking very fast.
Right. Okay. I see. I think my best advice would be, I'm going to give you two pieces of advice here. One is sort of like a more technical one, and then the other is a more psychological one. The first one, the technical advice, would be to slow down. But that's, once again, much easier said than done. And the way that I would slow down is I would take more breaths, okay? Put in little pauses, while you're speaking, and this will help the examiner understand you, because maybe you do say the whole sentence really fast, but if you just put in a little pause, it will give the examiner time to process your answer, and it will give you time as well to just to collect your thoughts and probably calm down a little bit, and then you can carry on again. And also in that pause, you'll probably remember, hopefully, to slow down. And another thing is, if you start slow, take more breaths, and don't worry about the vocabulary to start with, okay? And don't worry about trying to squeeze or force the vocabulary in there. If you can think of examples and tiny little stories, and stories about people, about your feelings, stuff like this, just by taking that route of personalizing the answer and giving examples, you will find that you'll be using a more extensive vocabulary, but more importantly, you'll be using it naturally, okay? Because when you force the vocabulary, it's much more likely to sound unnatural. It's going to obviously sound forced, and it's not going to fit in as well, and it probably won't make your answers as coherent. Whereas if you tell a story and a personal reflection or some feelings or an example, like the one I gave about the guy who had been traveling for 900 years and lives on a boat, Yeah, I could go into that really easily. I could say, yeah, he was really interesting. He'd been traveling for about the last 12 years. He went to Bhutan, Nepal, Colombia, Canada, all these amazing countries, and he shared a lot of experiences about the cultures there. Yeah, so just by telling that tiny little story, I used words that you wouldn't normally use, like experiences, culture, and then all those countries as well. So it just gives you the opportunity to improve your vocabulary. Now, the second piece of advice I want to give you is, I mean, some people might say this is a little bit woo-woo, a little bit odd, but this really does work. If you can, and this is what athletes do, professional athletes before major events, is like they visualize the expected result, the desired outcome. Yeah. So if you can just take some time and maybe jump on YouTube, go to research visualization techniques. But in your case, I think it would be a case of just closing your eyes and imagining yourself talking slower to the examiner, and go through the whole exam in your head. Start off with just task 1 of talking slowly to the examiner, and just imagine the whole thing, okay? And basically, you've got nothing to lose. If you spend 5 minutes a day doing this for 10 days, that's almost an hour of your time. And if you get to that 7, you've saved how many Australian dollars is it now?
330, I think so.
330, yeah. So if you can spend an hour doing this technique, it could save you $330.
And the whole time. Yeah.
So I would just give it a try. And plus, all the professional athletes do it. In fact, I might put something on Facebook about visualization, because I think it's a technique that would benefit a lot of students. Now, is that okay? Was that question answered for you? Is that fine?
Yes, it's excellent. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And actually, something else that I started doing is practicing with a friend who already took the test and got the score he needed. Mm-hmm. And I try to imagine that I'm really taking the test and speaking really slowly. Forcing me to speak slowly. In that way, I don't speak so slow, but I speak in a good speed.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent idea, an excellent technique to do as well, is to practice with a friend. And in fact, maybe if you find somebody that's really helpful at the language exchange, you could just say, hey, how about we meet together and I will buy you a coffee, or I'll buy you a meal, and we can just go through the speaking exam. It would be really helpful for me, you know? If you find somebody at the language exchange that's just really helpful for you and gives you good advice, grab them by their neck and say...
No, I do it too.
But grab their arm and just say, hey, look, can I pay for dinner for you, or can I pay for lunch? I just really want to pass the exam, and I think you could help me, you know?
Yes, of course. Yeah, I do it with advice.
Okay, I want to see the picture as well of you grabbing that person by the neck.
Okay, yeah, of course, I do it with an Australian person. Yeah, for sure.
All right. Okay, so the next, your next question was?
I don't know, what do you think about my pronunciation? Because some people say that maybe it's my pronunciation which is taking me point out. If it's like that, do you know a way to improve it in an easy and fast way? Or is it okay, my pronunciation right now?
Okay, I see. Personally, I think your pronunciation is good. There are a few words, okay, but the main thing is I can understand you, and there's no strain. Yeah, because I mean, you can learn English all your life, and it's very improbable, it's very unlikely that you will get rid of your accent. Just like me, I could be learning Spanish all my life and there's no way I could get rid of my accent. Okay? I think for kiddies, it's a different story, but for adults, we're pretty much going to have an accent. So don't worry about it. And in my point of view, I would work on other parts like the speed, because you said that seems to be a major problem, a challenge.
Yeah.
And what was the other thing we talked about first? But
Understand the question.
Yes, the listening. That was it. The listening. So I would work on those two things, but for other students who do want to improve the pronunciation, and this might also be beneficial for you, Gabriela, is one, talking maybe a little bit louder. Okay, this is probably more for Asian students who seem to come from like a little bit more of a quieter culture. This is what I mean. I'm just generalizing here, but from my personal experience and from being in Asia, I found that it's definitely a quieter country, and it was usually only the Westerners that I could hear on the streets. Okay, so this would be more for the Asians. And one tip that would be quite useful and really economical would be to, and this is good for you because you're in Australia, but anybody could do it, would be just to ring up local businesses and ring them up and just ask them questions. And if they don't understand you, then you know that you've got to work on your pronunciation. Yeah?
Okay.
But if they do understand you, then it's fine. And what you can also do in this situation is like ring them up and start talking. If they don't understand, start talking a little bit slower. If they don't understand, start talking a little bit louder. And you can calibrate it, and you can change it according to the listener. But you'll get real world sort of like feedback. And some people, it's one technique, if you're really worried about it. Okay, so
okay.
All right.
I haven't thought about that. Okay. Yeah, but it's interesting.
It's a technique. I mean, what I want to do is give you lots and lots of different techniques that you can use, and choose one that you're most comfortable with. So, and this goes for the listeners as well. All right. So, question 4, I think we're on.
Yeah. I was listening one of your podcasts. I think it was a teacher of I forgot. It's not IELTS. It's the other test, the TOEFL.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one of her advice was using transition words. Is it necessary? Sometimes I forget using them. Maybe it's because in Spanish I barely use them. I mean, with transitions words, I mean, firstly, secondly, and right now I'm trying to introduce them to my vocabulary, but I don't usually use them.
I think, to be honest with you, I think they are useful and they are good, especially if you want to like structure what you want to say. So this could probably be useful maybe in part 2, where you have to give like this small presentation. Yeah, but like as I said, this is like if you're worried and your mind is all over the place, then using that structure firstly, secondly, and finally, that's good, and it can give you that structure. The structure I teach also doesn't really focus on transition words. It more focuses on just structuring it, your actual speech, but going from a sort of like a general to specific. And this is why so we're talking about different ways of improving your English, and then we'll talk about the language exchange, and then we'll go a little bit more specific and tell a tiny story or give an example. You see, and that's the kind of structure I teach, because we can incorporate more vocabulary in there. But focusing on transition words, just to use transition words, I don't think you're going to get points for using firstly, secondly, thirdly, finally, but you probably would get points for giving a more structured presentation. So I would focus on the structure rather than the actual specific words. Okay?
Oh, okay.
But if you are a
Okay.
student that does lack structure in part 2, then using that framework could be of value to you. But I think in your case, Gabriella, you've got the speaking course. So, and in that speaking course, there's the structure which I just explained, but in much more detail with lots of examples and more tuition on how to use it correctly.
Sorry, I couldn't understand very well. I have the structure, what? Course?
Sorry, in the speaking course, in the IELTS Speaking Confidence course, that you've
What
got...
is course? Course?
Course?
Course? Course?
Curso.
Ah, curso. Okay, okay. Thank you. Sorry. Okay.
I hope my students understood that. I hope the listeners had to say it in Spanish. Let's see. Course. Do you know why it's a problem? Because it's two vowel sounds, the O and the U, that are still pronounced as though I'm from the north, which I am from the north of England. So obviously I'm going to pronounce it like that. But I think if I was in London, I would say course. Course. Okay. So you've got, what I was saying was, you've got access to the IELTS Speaking Confidence course. Okay. And in that course, you've got the whole modules explaining the framework in lots more detail, with lots more examples and guidelines on how to use it correctly.
Oh, okay. Yeah, just right now I haven't started with those lessons. I'm focusing on writing, but I have to check all that material too, of course.
Yeah. I mean, one thing that I would do is, while you're submitting the essays, once you've submitted them, go and have a look at the speaking course, spend a day or two, or watch a few videos, and then once you get your essays back, watch some more essay writing videos, and then once you send them off, watch the speaking ones, if you get my drift.
Okay, that's great.
And that's just one suggestion.
Of course. Okay, it's good.
Right. Okay, so question 5.
You know that many people give you different advices, and what friend usually structure his. But I think this you already answered this, but just to be sure about that, he usually structure his second part like in the past. Imagine if he was asked about, do you like the mountains? Oh yeah, in the past I didn't like them because they were too high and whatever. Oh, nowadays I really enjoy watching them. I think in the future I'm gonna have so it was like, for me it was maybe not, it didn't sound natural, but he got an 8 in the speaking test, so maybe that's the best way of doing that.
Okay, that's a really, it sounds like a really interesting technique. The problem is, though, I mean, without speaking to him, it's difficult to tell whether it was this technique, or maybe he was just a really confident speaker, or maybe it was something else.
Also.
It's quite tricky to say. And I think using that structure doesn't sound too bad. It sounds quite good. But the key, I think, would be having the skill to make it sound a little bit natural, to make it sound natural, because if it sounds forced, then the examiner's going to know and you won't be able to pick up the points. If I were you, Gabriella, in your speaking confidence course, you get the chance to do a mock speaking exam, one-on-one, a Skype call, okay, with the tutor.
Okay.
In that when you have that opportunity, you can experiment, and try and use that structure. And if the tutor says, be careful with that structure, it sounds a little bit forced, then you can either work on it or just forget it. But if the tutor doesn't say anything, then perhaps it's a useful structure for you to incorporate into your speaking exam. Okay. So what I'm trying to say here was, I would just give it one chance. Give it a chance in a practice speaking exam or with your tutor. Don't tell them you're going to use it. Just use it. If they don't say anything, then perhaps you're onto a winner. Perhaps you've discovered a little bit of gold there. Okay. Now, question 6.
Yeah. I just want to confirm this thinking I have. In the cue card in part 2, I don't have to answer all the questions. I mean, they just give me like a topic and I just start talking about that. But if I don't answer the whole questions because I didn't have enough time, or I started talking so much in the first question and I didn't answer the last one, it's okay. I'm not gonna be punished because of that.
Well, sorry, hang on a second. My neighbours are going a bit crazy. It's
But okay. The sound is a little weird with you right now.
Oh, really? Oh no, that's not good.
It's like interception, maybe it's the word.
I think to be honest with you, I think it might be my neighbours. But I'll just answer this question, okay? And then we've got question 7, and then we can move on to the writing. But the question was, so on your part 2, you've got sort of like one topic, and then you've got 3 bullet points, and your question is, do you have to answer all 3 of those bullet points? Is that the question?
Yes.
Right. Okay. Yes, definitely, and work through them, okay, and use them as your structure. Yeah. So if it says something like, describe a job you had in the past and the workers you worked with, and describe why you liked it, or describe a job you had in the past which you really enjoyed. Bullet point 1, describe where it was and what you did. Bullet point 2, describe why you liked the job and the workers you worked with. And bullet point 3, describe or mention or talk about what job you would like to do in the future. Okay, just an example of a speaking cue card. In this case, talk about every single point on that cue card. Okay. There's a few reasons for this, but one is that you've got 2 minutes, and 2 minutes is a lot of time to talk about something that maybe you're not so interested in. Okay, and what happens with a lot of students is that they finish before, or they're not so sure, and it's much better to talk for a little bit longer than to talk for less. So in this case, what I would definitely do is cover every single point, and make sure you're going through them and answering what's in front of you, okay? And not answering some other topic or talking about something else. Just keep to that topic card and make sure you've answered every bullet point. And as a rough guide, I would say maybe three or 4 sentences for each bullet point. But it's much easier said than done again. But roughly, you want to talk about for that length, 3 or 4 sentences, possibly a little bit longer. And this is a perfect opportunity to introduce the framework from the course of going from general to specific, and putting in little stories, little natural stories, Like, for example, once I worked on a farm, and there were about 10 different workers, but perhaps my favourite worker was Karen, because she had been travelling for the last 12 years, and she'd gone to all these different countries, blah, blah, blah. Okay? So introduce your feelings and maybe a favorite thing, and it gives you the opportunity to use more vocabulary.
Okay, that's
All right.
great.
Okay.
Thank you. And the last one's also to confirm. I should try to use the widest vocabulary I have. I mean, I should avoid to use maybe 3 times the same expression. If I use it only once, it's okay.
Yeah, and
Or,
this is a tricky one. I mean, I don't know about you, but for example, if I have a word in my head, then if I'm conscious of it, say if I just used an expression and I said, "Oh yes, you've used that expression," then I'm more likely to use it again. Yeah, and that's because I've got that expression in my consciousness. So, in this case, I mean, I would not worry about the repetition, and I wouldn't worry about these kind of stuff. If you, let's see, so I mean, it would be good to obviously use synonyms and stuff like that. And if you can, I would do. But my personal experience from this is that if I've got something in my mind and I'm not explaining it that well. What I'm trying to say here is that if I've got it in my mind, I'm more likely to use it once, twice, 3 times, which is not my desired outcome. You see what I mean?
yes, exactly.
So,
Yeah, excellent.
let's see. So, if if you can be aware of it without repeating it, then do it. But if not, I mean, to be honest, what I would try and do is take a different approach, and that approach would be trying to talk from a more natural perspective of telling personal anecdotes and personal stories, because this will not only relax you, but it will take you down paths of using more expansive vocabulary to explain your situation. And because the personal stories, it's going to sound more natural, and this way you're going to fill your head up with much more calmness than all this anxiety about repetition and expressions.
Yeah.
That's my personal advice
Of
on that.
Okay, it's excellent. Thank
All
you.
right.
I think
Okay.
you answered all my questions.
Thank you very much for listening to all of the podcast. I hope you really enjoyed it. Now, here's just a little note. Next week, I'll do another recording with Gabriella. We're going to talk about the writing. I'll be answering all her questions. And she's failed the writing about 5 times. Now she's finally decided to study with me. She's joined the sentence guide course. She also got the speaking package, which comes with a 1-to-1 IELTS mock, like a practice speaking exam, where you can get to know some of the mistakes that you're making so you don't make them on exam day. And also the sentence guide writing course, and that comes with 8 essay corrections. Okay, so it's a real steal, it's a real bargain. And think about it, 8 essay corrections. Some sites are selling their own corrections for about $25 each. So if you're getting 8 with the sentence guide, that's about $160 worth of IELTS essay corrections. And you're getting the sentence guide as well, which comes with a guarantee. And personally, I think it's a bit underpriced. And because of this new Facebook group that you get access to, lots of students have joined, of course, and they've told their friends. So now the places are filling up, and there's just a lot more students on the course. So this is what I wanted to say, was that the price is going to increase from €92. It's going to go up to, I think it was 125 or 135, and that's going to happen near the end of May. So if you are thinking about it, now is the best time to invest in that sentence guide. And the way I see it is, if you're paying $300 for the exam, actually let's just put this in euros. So it's about £130 for the exam, so that's about €150. So if €160 maybe, And if you're paying 92 euros to make sure that you don't have to spend another 160 euros next time, then you're actually saving about 80 euros or 60, 70 euros. Okay? Don't think I explained that well. What I'm trying to say is that if you just invest a little bit of money, you'll be able to pass, and you won't have to spend more cash taking the exam again and again and again. Okay, and now's the best time to do it because the price is going up at the end of May. Okay, so, and another thing, Gabriella's taken the exam about 5 times. She still hasn't passed the writing. And at the moment, her latest exam score was something like a 6 or a 6.5. She's going to study with me. Not with me, actually. She's going to study with my course. The essay corrector Gwendolyn's going to correct all her work, and then at the end of the course, hopefully, really, this is a bit risky, but hopefully she'll be on a band 7 or higher, and I'll prove that the course works, and we'll have another interview where she can share her strategies and how she prepared for the course. Okay, so all the best. Hope your IELTS preparation is going well. If you need a hand, send me an email, sign up for the email list if you haven't signed up already. Lots of material going out there, tutorials, sample essays, lots of good stuff just to help you pass the exam. All the best and have a fantastic day. And thank you for downloading the podcast and listening right to the end. Have a great day.
Thanks for listening to IELTSPodcast.com.